All right, man, peace. So, basketball legend and one-time Laker great, the retired shooting guard Kobe Bryant, recently made some statements stating that if he were playing today, that he would kneel during the national anthem. Of course, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
All right, welcome back to the show. Christine Leahy is back, and we're joined now by the founder of the Big League, Jason McIntyre. Let's move to Kobe Bryant, who was interviewed by the Hollywood Reporter yesterday, and when asked what he would do during the national anthem if he was still playing, the former Lakers star answered in one word, kneel. Cowherd, do you believe Kobe would kneel if he were still playing?
Well, before Colin answers, let me say this. I believe that Kobe would do whatever his environment dictated that he should do. I think that there's a reason why Kobe Bryant likens himself unto a serpent. Because as I tell you brothers already, as I've told y'all incessantly, the highest level of thinking is as the serpent. The serpent does not think with his emotions. He thinks totally according to reason and rationale and the betterment of oneself, and also factoring in the betterment of everything around him at large. Kobe Bryant is going to do what's best for him. Okay? Like a serpent, he's going to come wherever the light is shining, wherever there's heat. That's what he's going to do. He's not going to make any emotional moves. Right now, he understands as a businessman, we're living in the age of the woke athlete. He knows that all of his corporate sponsors will have his back as a woke athlete. He knows that this is not the time to ride the fence. This is the time when all these so-called black athletes have to make their opinions felt, have to make their opinions known to their market, to whoever it is who purchases their product, whoever it is who views them as people to be idolized. He understands that the time period of just being in commercials and smiling and being an advocate for certain products for major corporations, those days are gone. Now, these athletes have to get on camera. They have to represent for themselves and for their corporate sponsors in a way that does not alienate the demographics that they have to appeal to. Kobe Bryant's demographics are from the 12-year-old to 35-year-old range. Those are the people who admire him to a great degree. And he understands that to get on camera or in an interview and state that he would not kneel would alienate a lot of his demographic. The people that buy his sneakers or buy his products, the people that he's going to try to market a lot of products to in the near future. So that's basically my take on Kobe Bryant's statements. It had nothing to do with him being an advocate for or against police brutality or anything of that nature. He's very shrewd, and he understands why he has to say certain things.
I don't know. He took on Phil publicly. He took on Shaq publicly. He took on the Lakers publicly. Remember, he said he wanted out.
Yes, he did all those things, but none of those things really have to do with the conversation. This conversation is, would he take a knee? And if you believe that he would take a knee, why would he take a knee? The reason why he came against Shaq and Phil and the Lakers was because he felt like those three entities were stopping him from achieving the vision that he had for himself. There's a reason why serpents are known to be loners. Many times their brains operate at such a degree that they don't fit in with anybody else. All right. So Kobe understands that in order for him to survive like a serpent, he has to seek out whatever the light and the heat source is. Right now, the light and the heat source is being woke. So if he has to say the right things to make himself appear to be that's what he's going to do. Also remember, snakes and other serpents are known for being able to blend into their environment. Okay? That is what Kobe will do. Kobe is not a fool. As I told you, brothers, on previous videos, the highest level of thinking is the serpent.
So he's pretty defiant. He's pretty strong-willed. So Kobe's never been somebody to back away from an opinion. So it wouldn't surprise me.
Kobe's a troll as well. He occasionally drifts into trolling, and he loves to be the center of attention.
Agreed and agreed. Kobe is a troll, and he does love to be the center of attention. I remember back in 2012 when Kobe Bryant was involved in an attempt to sow dissension between Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant at the 2012 Olympics. Like a serpent, like a dragon, somebody who operates according to a microcosmic three-dimensional thought process. He assessed that they were going to be the up-and-coming team in the Western Conference. They were the team that knocked him out of the playoffs in 2012, and he knew that he had to take the opportunity to sow dissension in their ranks if he could. And that's what he did, or attempted to do. Now, how much that worked, who knows? 3-4 years later, they're no longer together. So he may have been the one to plant the seed there. Who knows? But Kobe does love to troll. He loves being on the tip of everybody's tongue in regards to hypothesizing if he was the one who influenced Kyrie Irving to leave LeBron James. I'm on record as saying I believe that he had an influence. I have little doubt about that, because he's taught Kyrie to operate in a similar fashion. All right. This is how they work in that world. You have a master and an apprentice. Michael Jordan was Kobe Bryant's master. He learned under Michael Jordan. Now Kobe Bryant has taken Kyrie under his wing as an apprentice. He's going to pass down that same mindset, the mindset of the dragon to Kyrie. All right. Once again, that mindset is symbolic. When I say that the serpent or the dragon is the highest level of thinking, the highest level of comprehension, that is symbolic. All right. That is why Cush adapted the image of the serpent in what you call the caduceus, the symbol of Hermes, right? The intertwining serpent. Okay. This is why he adopted that symbology, because the serpent represented the highest level of wisdom, and it also was symbolized or correlated with the sun, because the sun represented the brightest light. Okay, this is where you get the image of the Ouroboros from, meaning the cycle of destruction and regeneration or rejuvenation. All right.
These NBA players are getting away with a bogus narrative. They're all NFL players. You guys kneel. There's no reason to kneel during the national anthem. We won't do it, and everyone's buying it. They're not going to kneel in the NBA, and Kobe wouldn't either, because they make far more money in endorsements than they do from their team.
That's true.
And so you're not going to jeopardize your sponsorship.
Well, I agree with Whitlock from the standpoint that they are going to be dictated to by their corporate sponsors, but I disagree that their corporate sponsors would be offended by any form of gesture. I actually believe that their sponsors would encourage them in their gestures, because their corporate sponsors have an antipathy for Donald Trump. All right. Whenever you want to find out why people are doing what they're doing on the higher levels, you always follow the money. You always follow the money. So this is why Kobe came out and answered the question how he answered it, because he understands that it's good for his brand to answer that question in that way.
That's why Steph Curry and no, we're not going to take a knee, and no, we're going to respect the national anthem. It's easier for them. Steph Curry made $60 million last year, $11 million from the Warriors, $49 million from sponsors. They're doing business in the NBA. That's why they're not taking a knee. They don't have the guts to say it. They should say to the NFL players, conduct business, you idiots. If you
This is why I refer to the NFL players as meatheads. All right? This is why I refer to them as meatheads. Because, they're just going along to get along. They don't even know why they're doing what they're doing. All right? The NFL protests are a wonderful display in groupthink and how easy it is to psychologically manipulate a mass group just off of mental suggestion, just based off of telling them what they shouldn't be doing. You got them to do something. It's like an inverse of the game Simon Says. Right? It's like if Simon says don't do this and they do it. Okay? Whitlock is onto something to a degree, but I don't believe that the NBA players are not going to kneel because they're worried about a reverberation from their corporate sponsors. I believe that they're not going to kneel because they don't want to disrespect what has already been stipulated in the NBA bylaws, which is that you're not allowed to kneel. I don't believe that they feel like they need to do that because they've been given so much leeway by Adam Silver already that they can pretty much do whatever they want if they want to show their any form of disapproval in how they allegedly feel like they've been treated by the president or society at large. They pretty much have an open forum to express themselves in a myriad of ways. They don't need to copy what the NFL is doing. The NBA players' mentality is that, look, this is a liberal league. We really don't have we're really not kept in order or in place to the level of the NFL players. We're going to establish our own way of rebelling or showing out or making a social gesture, whatever you want to call it. And we don't need to follow them. All right, we'll give them a little pat on the backside, and then we'll show them how it's really done. But everything is stipulated by corporate sponsorship. All of these guys are nothing but assets, all of them.
Want to protest? Do it away from your job. Don't jeopardize your money. Be like LeBron. Be like Steph Curry. But no, they don't have the courage to say that. And so everybody can posture, oh, and Kobe's out of the league, and yeah, I'll take a knee. You know what they all believe? And everybody criticize. You know what they believe? Republicans buy shoes, too.
Now, why did Whitlock say that? Because he was alluding to what I stated about Kobe Bryant being the Svengali of most of these younger players. And Kobe Bryant's master, he was the apprentice to one Michael Jordan. And that is the statement that has always been attributed to Michael Jordan. It's never been proven. But as a businessman, I've stated this on a previous video, I had no problem with it. As a businessman, you do not alienate your market, period. All right? If you want to be intelligent and you want to help your community at large, you take the money that you earn from people buying your product and you take it and you reinvest it in your own community. You don't alienate your marketplace to keep a vain verbal race war going on. Right? If you want to have a race war with people who you feel like who you feel like are oppressing you, then you do what that dude out there in Las Vegas did and you pop off. All right? That's what you do. You don't go on Twitter and on YouTube and on all these social media sites like all of these internet revolutionaries do. Clickety clack, submit, talking a whole bunch of shit on the internet. Worried about who has donated what, and you have not donated one penny to any cause. You're just talking shit all damn day. All right? So this is why I say they're corporate assets. They're not going to ruin. They're not going to bite the hand that feeds them. And nor should they. The only thing I do is call them out for their fake posturing and their low-level thinking and their lack of an end game. All right? But everything is about economics. Every transaction in America is a commercial transaction. Every interaction is basically commercialized. All right? That's why when you go to the store and you give them paper, they give you back paper, what they call a receipt. That's just a bill of exchange. All right? Because there is no real money.
So I'm not going to take a knee because I want Trump supporters to buy my shoes too.
I'm going to take that a step further. And who has Kobe emulated his entire career? From the bald head, the change of jerseys. There's a video out there where Kobe just copied everything Jordan did. Yeah. Up and under moves, fadeaways. And what did Michael Jordan do? He refused to take a side. So I'm of the belief that Kobe would not have taken a knee.
I wouldn't say that Michael Jordan has refused to take a side. I believe that Michael Jordan understood that there really was no cogent side to take. He understood that black people had no plan. They didn't have their shit together. And our people had intraracial problems that needed to be handled before you run around talking about Caucasians and how angry you are at Caucasians. And I think that Michael Jordan understood that deep down. Most of these niggas just want the white man's approval and they want a hug from them. So his attitude was, okay, if you really want that, then you have to work hard to get what you want so that they will respect you, because their respect is obviously so important to you. So why would Michael Jordan join any type of so-called militant black group who really don't have a plan anyway? All right. You never allow the emotions of somebody else to infiltrate your brain and have them basically become a proxy ruler over your thoughts. You can't have that. All right. Once again, when you're thinking like a dragon, you don't allow anybody to influence your thoughts once you're on that level, because now you're comprehending things that are going on around you. All right. It's not just about what's going on directly in front of you. It's what's going on around you. Once you comprehend it on that level, you don't need anybody really to train you anymore.
Easy to say that now, but I don't think Kobe would have kneeled in his prime. There's no way.
Well, the hell no, he wouldn't have kneeled in his prime, because in his prime, they were not in the woke era. In the mid 2000s, they were still in the corporate era. They were still in the just play era, just play basketball. I remember Jim Brown came out and criticized Kobe. And then Kobe kind of shot back and stated that, well, no. He said something along the lines of what Martin Luther King would not have wanted to hear, or what Martin Luther King would not have liked. Basically, you have a series of different groups, and I mentioned this before, within the civil rights pantheon of various black groups. You have subgroups of people who allegedly have different interpretations on what black people should do, and they always snipe back and forth at each other. Kobe Bryant was smart enough to respond to Jim Brown in a way to imply that if you truly are as militant as you say, then, you should be doing something much more extreme than what you're doing. You can't talk all that pro-black stuff, and then every time you turn around, you're shaking a white man's hand. This is why Kobe Bryant pulled the Martin Luther King card. But, there's just confusion on top of confusion amongst these athletes. This is why they're not really built to be leaders.
If he's saying it, I'm not going to tell him that he's wrong for his own thought on what he would do. The problem is we'll never know because he's not going to go play. But they're actually not allowed to kneel in the NBA. There's rules against it. We actually looked it up. There's no fine in place. It just says that you can't do it, and then they will review. So there's not an exact punishment, if you will. But to me, the point of kneeling is to raise awareness and to show that you don't believe in what the country currently stands for and a lot of the things going on. And the NBA players, what we've seen is that they're locking arms and doing something together. And to me, if you're bringing up something together as a way of protesting, you're still getting your point across.
Yes, the point that they're all getting across is that they really don't know what they want. They really have no end game. They're just doing something because that's the new trend. It's like a new hairstyle or a new style of dress. It's really just akin to a communal tantrum that once again so-called black people like to throw because our people refuse to acknowledge the fact that we have our own issues that we have to handle. We have to establish a certain order, and a lot of people are not going to go along with it, so a lot of them have to be removed. These things are not going to come to fruition until a great traumatic event, a great tumult per se, because right now we have too much extra fat on this steak, right? The extra fat has to be snipped off, okay? That's really what the problem is that there's too many people with dual allegiances.
If it's not kneeling.
I hear all that.
Or do you think that you have to do something against the rules and be willing to take a fine in order to make a point?
No, I'm very consistent with this. These guys should leave the national anthem and their jobs out of their protest.
Absolutely. And I don't understand why so-called black people don't grasp this, but I kind of do understand. It's because a lot of so-called black men today, they have the mindset of the mother that raised them, the single mother that raised them, which is get attention by any means, cause disruption by any means. This is why the Black Lives Matter movement, they're focused on not just the black woman, but the lesbian black woman. They want her to be the face of black leadership. They want her mindset to be the new mindset for the so-called black community, which is get attention and offend as many people as possible, never be cognizant of the repercussions of your actions, and just think everything is supposed to go your way. That's Black Liberal Woman 101. Okay? And this is why a lot of these liberal black athletes, these woke Negroes, they're not going to understand that this so-called movement is going nowhere, and it's going nowhere fast. Okay? When you go to, if your neighbor is making noise, and you know that your neighbor is a rational person, do you think that it's a better plan to go and knock on their door and say, hey, just be careful because when you're doing this, you're making a lot of noise and I can hear you? Or should you throw a rock through their window and say, well, why are you mad at that I threw a rock through your window and I ruined your house? I disrespected your house when you're disrespecting me by being loud. Oh, but that was just a protest, so I'm supposed to inconvenience you because you're inconveniencing me. Do you understand the difference between the two? Do you understand that when you have a certain grievance with a certain faction, a certain demographic in society, that you go and you protest that faction, that portion? If you truly have an issue with the police, then you go to the chief of police. You have a coordinated protest against the chiefs of police in every city. And that's what you do. You leave it out of your stadium. All right? You don't bring your trash to work. You don't bring your personal business to work. Just like you shouldn't bring whatever goes on at work into your home life. You should keep those two things separate. That's part of operating according to order and structure. This is why I call these people agents of chaos. Okay? Now, Kobe Bryant is a Luciferian. It is what it is. People might not like that, but it is what it is. He's a Luciferian. That's another reason why he embraces the imagery of the serpent. Because once again, on the right-hand side, the serpent represents wisdom and intelligence. But on the left-hand side, as I've stated, there's a reason why Kush adopted that symbology. All right. So I have no doubt, no dispute that Kobe Bryant is a Luciferian and that he adheres to a lot of those ideologies. But you never, ever, ever engage in a protest just for causing chaos. If you're engaging in a protest, then it should be very, very straightforward in what it is that you don't like. You should have stipulations on what you want to have accomplished, why you want them accomplished, and how they're going to get accomplished. If you don't have all those things really laid out, you're really wasting everybody's time. All right. And people are going to find as this thing strings along that nothing is going to get accomplished, but both sides are going to be dug in. And the people who are co-signing the protest, they're going to continue to act quizzical as to why Caucasians are not receptive to your so-called protests. Why would they be? You threw a rock through their house just because they had a radio playing, right? Address the radio issue. Don't break their window. It's just dumb.
There are more effective ways.
That's if the issue is really what you claim it is. Everything I said is based off of the pretense of what so-called blacks claim that they're angry about. As I've already stated, liberal blacks really just want a hug. That's really all they're about. They just want a hug from the Caucasian man and woman.
There are ways where if you're trying to reach people that disagree with you so they could actually hear you. They've driven a conversation about the national anthem. They haven't moved anybody in the center. They haven't moved anybody that's against them. They've done things that are popular over social media. And again, I just want the NFL players to look at the NBA players. They're the leading social justice warriors in sports. They're the progressives that stand for all the right things. They're not taking a knee because they're protecting their financial interests, because guys like LeBron are smart enough to know.
Guys like LeBron are smart enough to know that they already have a lot of sweat equity with the so-called black community. Guys like LeBron are smart enough to know that the amount of public appearances that he's made in regards to his foundations have pretty much made him exempt from having to take a knee to prove his quote-unquote blackness or his quote-unquote wokeness. As I've already stated in a video that I made about LeBron James and Donald Trump, as well as LeBron James in juxtaposition to Steph Curry, what LeBron really wants is he wants to leverage himself as the woke captain. That's pretty much really what he wants right now. LeBron is a politician and he thinks like a politician. You know, he wants to make sure that he cultivates a certain image for himself so that he can be lauded by the liberals, both white and black, and that he can get a bunch of mentions in all his social media pages about how great he is. All right, this is going to help him monetarily in the long run. He understands that. Once again, he's a guy who understands his demographic. He understands his market. Same thing with Kobe.
I can take this money I'm making and invest it in Akron and in poor people and in people I believe in. That's the model for athletes. The dumb things the NFL players are doing to build their social media brands and to build their popularity, it's bad business, and in the long run, it's bad for the football players, and it's not effective. But, you know, you get in trouble for saying that, and so I expect to be in trouble.
Well, you won't get in trouble. You'll just get attacked by the dimwit internet revolutionaries, the ones who really don't have a plan, don't know up from down, and don't even understand what they really want, which is just a hug. But I agree with most of what Whitlock said. The NFL players, they were thoroughly triggered by Donald Trump, and they were coached by their ownership. Right? Their ownership told them, "Look, we're going to get on one knee and we're going to lock arms." Right? The same owners who themselves threatened to cut players, like guys like Jerry Jones, who threatened to cut players if they did not have their hand over their heart for the national anthem. All right. So this is how people get played. These are just coordinated gestures, really psychological operations, to affect the minds of the people. But we're living in an era, like I called it, the surveillance era. We're living in an era where people are just much more aware of what's going on around them. They're much more aware of the tactics that are being used to try to influence them, and they're just not buying it anymore. All right? Other than the simpletons.
Interesting that the NFL is the one league without guaranteed contracts where guys get cut. I mean, of all the leagues, they would be the one, from a macro level, you'd be like, okay, be careful about protesting. Because the NBA guys have guaranteed money.
Yeah.
But it's like you're saying, whether you agree with it or not. I also find this interesting about current protests in America.
Yeah, but after Trump said what he said, they no longer have to worry about protesting. That's the thing. After Trump, this is why I said in the video that Trump helped out the woke movement because he put a battery in their back. I even said this before they had all those grand gestures, that he put a battery in the back of the woke movement because it was dying out. Okay? You had like one guy you had maybe in the entire league, you might have had 10 or 11 guys who were getting on one knee to do the Kaepernick. After Trump did what he did, now you have 10 guys on every team doing it. Or, pardon me, after Trump said what he said. And now the owners are no longer going to try to infringe upon what they're doing because the owners felt personally offended by Trump trying to dictate to them what they should be doing and how they should treat their players. Because what that did was add a lot of enmity, possible enmity between not just the players and the owner, but the players and the coach. Because if a coach comes and looks at a player wrong for getting on one knee, the player is going to look at that coach as an oppressor, as opposed to how he's supposed to be looking at a coach, which is as a guide and a trusted figure of authority. So this is the type of dissension that if you're running an NFL team, which, as I've stated in the past, is modeled after the military, you just cannot have. They needed to execute that psychological gesture for the sake of their players so that they would not be fractured. And even with all that, we still have gotten reports of teams being fractured by Trump's comments. All right. So the NBA operates on a totally different wavelength. The NBA does not operate like a military unit. They really operate more like a music band where you have a lead singer and then you have a bunch of backup singers and dancers and people of various degrees of importance. So it's easier for them to express themselves individually than in the NFL. All right, which to me is why they focused their operation, their PSYOP on the NFL, because they wanted to break down the NFL. The NFL is a sport that really transcends the media. They did not need media approval for the NFL to become more and more affluent. The NBA, on the other hand, courts the approval of the liberal media. The NFL does not. All right. So this is why, to me, why they focused this stratagem on the NFL, and they sent in Mr. Colin Kaepernick, and they they turned on or activated Mr. Michael Bennett. That's why they did that, because the NFL is really has a confrontational rapport with the modern liberal sports media.
In my life, conservatives have never been more conservative and liberals never been more liberal. People have taken sides. People have never been more entrenched. The protests sound good, and they play to the boycott plays to the conservatives, and the social moves by the play to the Democrats.
I agree. This is why I stated that Kobe would do whatever the environment dictates. All right? It's like a serpent. A serpent does whatever the environment dictates. When the environment gets cold, the serpent tries to look for heat. When it gets too hot, then it looks for a crevice to crawl into. Right? That is Mr. Kobe Bryant. He very, very aptly named himself the Black Mamba.
The world I watch and live in, people now have become entrenched and unwilling to listen to anything that's not in their camp.
Well, because those camps that you're talking about, that camp isn't trying to talk to this camp, and this camp isn't trying to talk to that camp.
I agree. What these camps are really just trying to do is they're trying to develop echo chambers where they could just talk to each other. And they're not using any type of rationale. They're not using any form of macrocosmic or reasonable thinking, realistic thinking. They're really just trying to encourage each other in their own buffoonery.
They're just having a conversation amongst themselves. And if you go look at effective protest and social justice movements, Martin Luther King was trying to talk to this camp. And I just don't see that happening a lot. Everybody's entrenched in their positions. No one's trying to move the middle. It's ineffective. It's divisive for the country. It's divisive for sports. It's not healthy.
Well, Martin Luther King, and I've stated this ad infinitum, Martin Luther King was a pawn. He was maybe the greatest pawn of the 20th century. All right, one of the great pawns of all time, because he was very, very intelligent, and of course, very charismatic. Also had a great way with words. He was a phenomenal orator. So, I mean, he was really, if you were to look up in a dictionary the perfect pawn, Martin Luther King would be there. He took many of his tactics from his studies of Mahatma Gandhi, as well as being trained by Bayard Rustin, who also went out to India to study the techniques that were being used by Mahatma Gandhi, who was a theosophist. The theosophist or the Theosophical movement or Theosophical Society was developed by Madame Blavatsky, the top witch of the 19th century. All right, so this is why I tell you, brothers, these civil rights movements are, they spring from Marxism / socialism / communism, but their real fountain is Luciferianism. Okay.
I disagree with you guys both. I think that younger people are more open to seeing both sides of it. No, I really do, and I know that that's.
Oh, I don't believe that.
And the reason why, my belief, is that Twitter is dominated by one side. And that's what we're tending to believe. That's why everyone was shocked when Trump won, because they couldn't believe that there were other people out there thinking differently. But
yes, and they're going to be shocked when he wins again, because he is going to win again. And a lot of the liberal, woke, black committee on the internet, a lot of these people, they're going to really have a mental implosion when he wins again. Because people are going to sit back and they're going to look at how the media has covered Donald Trump. They're going to look at a lot of the stunts that have been waged in the liberal media, in the sports world, a lot of the blatant and rampant disrespect, a lot of it being frivolity in regards to the criticisms of Trump, who really has not done anything that's any different or disparate from what previous presidents have done in comparison. When you talk about atrocities, when you want to look at what Reagan and Bush and Clinton and Bush Jr. and Obama have done and compare atrocities to what Donald Trump has done. If Donald Trump does get removed, like I've stated in the past, it's because he's not bringing in the money that the Federal Reserve needs to send back to the international bankers. Okay? That's the only reason why he's going to get removed. It has nothing to do with grabbing women by the pussy and all that other nonsense.
Twitter isn't reality. It's not.
No, Twitter is not reality, but it's definitely a think tank for morons and idiots. And that's not to disparage or demean people who are on Twitter. You have millions and millions of people who are on Twitter, but it is definitely pro-liberal. It is definitely a place where people go to attempt to vent emotionally, and it's definitely not a place for people who are erudite. At least it's not a place for them to stay.
Preach about music.
Right, but I do believe that younger people, there is a more willingness to talk to the other people with other beliefs and work together. Not across the board.
I do hope you're right.
I don't think that that's everybody, but I do think that that is the case.
You look at these college campuses that won't allow people on that disagree with him.
Like
That's
comedians now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, but college campuses are just groves. And I mentioned this a long time ago in a video that I did on the fraternities and sororities. All college campuses are groves. That is literally what the college or the university architecture sprung out of, is the grove from ancient Babylon and the Semitic cultures. All right, that's why they're modeled like that, where you have the courtyard and all the trees out there. People sit in the courtyard and they talk shit all day. That's where the term academy comes from. It's a word, academia. It literally means a grove. Okay? When you go to college to learn under the system of the grove, which is Baal and Astarte, also known as Nimrod and Semiramis. When you get your degree, it's known as a baccalaureate, right? Baccalaureate from the god Bacchus. I already mentioned this. The name Bacchus means the son of Cush. Bacchus, the son of Cush, who is Nimrod. Okay? That's why you get that's why the elite schools are known as the Ivy League schools. The ivy was the plant of Bacchus. Okay? Why? Because in ancient Greece, the term for ivy was kisos. Okay? So Bacchus would always be depicted holding the ivy leaf or the ivy branch. Why? Because Bacchus was viewed as being the branch of the ivy. The ivy was also known as kisos. Kisos meant Cush. Okay, so it was allegorical. So when you receive your baccalaureate degree, when you go to an Ivy League school, you're learning under the institution that was established by Nimrod and his father Cush. Okay?
What we talk about, because that's more controversial. We're not seeing the grand picture.
Gotcha.
We're not seeing the truth.
Another good point. All right, coming up.
But anyway, that's the video on Kobe and whether or not he would kneel. I believe that he would do whatever was best for his own interests. But that's neither here nor there. Peace.